October 31st, 1974. Kids knock on doors. Candy spills into paper bags. One 8-year-old, Timothy O'Bryan, eats a Pixy Stix and dies within minutes. At first, the country panicked. A stranger poisoned Halloween candy. Then investigators found something worse. New life insurance policies, a father deep in debt, and a plan that looked an awful lot like a scam. This is Ronald Clark O'Bryan, optician, church deacon, father of 2. Also, $100,000 in debt, facing foreclosure, credit cards maxed. But he had a plan. Take out life insurance policies on his children, create a random Halloween poisoning, collect $60,000. Except insurance fraud investigators don't believe in coincidences. The morning after his son died, O'Bryan called his insurance company asking about the payout. This is how one man tried to turn Halloween into a payday, and how a paper trail exposed the deadliest insurance fraud in American history. Chapter 1. The Origin. Ronald Clark O'Bryan, born October 19, 1944, Deer Park, Texas. Works as an optician at Texas State Optical in Houston's Sharpstown district. Annual salary, $12,000. Decent money for 1970s Texas. Married to Daneen. 2 children. Timothy, born April 5, 1966. Elizabeth, born 1969. O'Bryan is also deacon at Second Baptist Church, sings in the choir, runs the bus program, seems like the perfect suburban dad. But underneath the church-going facade, debts are piling up. The financial collapse begins. Car payments behind, mortgage in arrears, credit cards maxed across multiple accounts. O'Bryan tries side hustles, sells life insurance part-time, fails. Tries managing a furniture store, loses money. By mid-1974, total debt exceeds $100,000. His optician's salary can't cover it. Daneen doesn't work. The children need food, clothes, school supplies. Bankruptcy would destroy his church reputation. Foreclosure would humiliate the family. O'Bryan needs money, fast. Summer 1973. O'Bryan contacts a friend who works as a chemist. The conversation seems casual at first. Then O'Bryan asks specific questions. How much cyanide would be fatal? Where can someone purchase it? How does it work? The chemist remembers feeling uncomfortable. O'Bryan claimed he was just curious. But the questions were too specific, too calculated. O'Bryan studies insurance fraud cases, reads about accidental death policies, double indemnity clauses, how investigators verify claims. The pattern emerges in his research. Successful fraud requires misdirection. If death looks random, investigators don't dig deep. But targeted murder? That triggers forensic analysis, detailed investigation. O'Bryan needs Timothy's death to look like random tragedy, part of a larger Halloween poisoning scare, not a father killing his son for insurance money. January 1974. O'Bryan begins building his insurance portfolio. First policies, $10,000 each on Timothy and Elizabeth, through his employer's group plan. The amounts are small enough to avoid scrutiny, standard coverage that many parents carry. But O'Bryan isn't done. September 1974, 1 month before Halloween. O'Bryan contacts multiple insurance companies for additional policies, $20,000 more on each child, different providers, different policy types. His insurance agent objects. Why do you need this much coverage on children? O'Bryan has an answer ready. They're growing. I want to make sure they're protected. The agent is suspicious, but processes the applications. Days before Halloween, O'Bryan takes out yet another $20,000 policy on each child. Total coverage: $60,000 on Timothy, $40,000 on Elizabeth. The premiums strain his budget. Monthly payments total hundreds of dollars he doesn't have. But O'Bryan sees it as investment. $60,000 would eliminate most of his debt. He just needs Timothy to die. And he needs it to look like a stranger's random act. October 1974. O'Bryan starts planning the method. But he needs more than insurance policies. He needs untraceable poison. Late October 1974. O'Bryan walks into a chemical supply store in Houston. He's wearing his work smock from the optometry office. Looks professional. Legitimate. "I need potassium cyanide," he tells the clerk. The clerk is immediately suspicious. Cyanide requires special licensing. "What do you need it for?" "Pest control at my office," O'Bryan explains. The clerk knows this is wrong. Cyanide isn't used for routine pest control. The quantities needed don't match professional extermination use. "I'll need to see your licensing," the clerk says. O'Bryan leaves without purchasing anything. But he's learned something important. Cyanide purchases leave records. He needs to be more careful. Days later, O'Bryan tries a different chemical supply company. This time, he claims he needs cyanide for photographic developing solutions. Some optical processes do use chemical developers. The story is more believable. But there's a problem. The smallest quantity available is 5 pounds. Far more than anyone would need for legitimate photography work. 5 pounds of potassium cyanide could kill thousands of people. "That's too much," O'Bryan says, trying not to seem suspicious. He leaves without purchasing. 2 failed attempts at documented purchase. But O'Bryan knows chemical suppliers aren't the only source. Industrial manufacturers use cyanide, mining operations, jewelry makers, metal plating companies. Somewhere in Houston, someone will sell him what he needs. Police would later testify that they never discovered where O'Bryan obtained the cyanide. But the evidence proves he succeeded. Because what happened next left no doubt. Days before Halloween, O'Bryan purchases 5 giant Pixy Stix from a local store. 21-inch tubes filled with powdered candy. Popular Halloween treat. Sold everywhere. At home, O'Bryan carefully opens each tube. He cuts one end with a pocket knife, pours out the top 2 inches of candy powder. Then he fills the empty space with pure potassium cyanide. Each Pixy Stix receives enough poison to kill 3 to 4 adults. O'Bryan reseals each tube with staples. The packages look unopened. 5 poisoned Pixy Stix. Timothy. Elizabeth. The neighbor's 2 children. A 10-year-old boy from church. Not just Timothy. O'Bryan needs multiple victims to create the illusion of random poisoning. October 31st, 1974. Halloween night. The plan goes into motion. And that's when everything started falling apart. Halloween night, 1974. Light rain falls across Deer Park, Texas. O'Bryan takes Timothy and Elizabeth trick-or-treating with their neighbor Jim Bates and his 2 children. They visit homes on 2 streets. Limited route because of weather. The group approaches a house with no lights on. The children knock. No answer. The kids run ahead to the next house. O'Bryan stays behind, alone at the darkened house. Minutes pass. When O'Bryan catches up with the group, he's carrying 5 giant Pixy Stix. "The house answered after you left," he explains. "They gave me these for the kids." He hands one to Timothy, one to Elizabeth, one to each of the Bates children. The fifth goes to a 10-year-old boy from church whose family they'll visit later. Nobody questions the story. Why would they? O'Bryan is a church deacon, a respected father, a man they trust. The group returns home around 8 p.m. Timothy asks to eat one piece of candy before bed. O'Bryan's daughter Elizabeth reaches for a lollipop. "No, no," O'Bryan interrupts. "You don't have time for that. Here, eat this Pixy Stix instead." He hands Timothy the poisoned tube. 30 seconds later, Timothy runs to the bathroom. His stomach hurts. Then the vomiting starts. Violent, uncontrollable. Timothy convulses on the bathroom floor, his small body seizing. Daneen calls 911. O'Bryan later testifies that he held his son while he vomited, that Timothy went limp in his arms. The ambulance arrives within minutes. Timothy O'Bryan dies en route to the hospital, less than 1 hour after eating the candy. October 31st, 11:47 p.m. Detective Bill Lanier responds to reports of a dead child. The scene is horrific. An 8-year-old boy dead from what appears to be poisoned Halloween candy. Parents across Deer Park panic. Hundreds bring their children's candy to police stations, demanding inspection, fearing mass poisoning. But here's what investigators discover. Only 5 pieces of tampered candy exist, the 5 Pixy Stix O'Bryan distributed. Every other piece of Halloween candy in the neighborhood is safe. The other 4 poisoned Pixy Stix are recovered. Elizabeth's tube, unopened. She hadn't been interested. The Bates children's tubes, unopened. Parents told them to save candy for the next day. The church boy's tube, found in his bedroom. He'd fallen asleep before eating it. 4 children saved by chance, by parental intervention, by staples that were too secure. Timothy was the only victim because O'Bryan personally opened his candy. November 1st, 1974. 9 hours after Timothy's death. O'Bryan calls his insurance company. "My son died last night," he explains. "I need to know about collecting the policies." The insurance agent is shocked. "We need to investigate first. This was a poisoning. There are procedures." O'Bryan pushes. "How long will it take?" "I need that money." The call is noted in company records, time-stamped, documented. Later that day, police interview O'Bryan about the poisoned candy. "Which house gave you the Pixy Stix?" detectives ask. O'Bryan can't remember. "It was dark. It was raining. One of the houses. There were only 2 streets." You can't remember which house? O'Bryan's story keeps changing. Detectives walk the route 3 times with O'Bryan. He points to different houses each time. They interview every resident on both streets. Nobody gave out Pixy Stix. Nobody remembers O'Bryan at their door alone. The house O'Bryan finally identifies belongs to Courtney Melton, an air traffic controller who worked nights. Melton has time-stamped work records proving he wasn't home. O'Bryan's story collapses. Detectives request O'Bryan's financial records. What they discover is devastating. Total debt, $100,000. Life insurance on Timothy, $60,000 total across multiple policies. All policies taken out in 1974, the most recent days before Halloween. Then investigators contact chemical supply stores. A clerk identifies O'Bryan from photos. A second clerk corroborates. O'Bryan's chemist friend testifies about the cyanide questions from 1973. At Timothy's funeral, O'Bryan's behavior shocks family members. His sister-in-law testifies. He talked about using the insurance money to take a long vacation. The evidence isn't circumstantial. It's overwhelming. November 5th, 1974. Ronald Clark O'Bryan is arrested for capital murder. U.S. District Court, Houston, Texas. O'Bryan faces 5 counts. 1 count of capital murder, Timothy's death. 4 counts of attempted murder, maximum sentence, death penalty. The prosecution's case is methodical, forensic, built entirely on paper trails and timeline analysis. The case prosecutors build is essentially insurance fraud prosecution. Murder is the method. Insurance money is the motive. May 5, 1975. The trial begins. National media attention. Reporters pack the courtroom. This is the case that's changing Halloween forever. The prosecution calls witness after witness. The chemist friend, chemical supply clerks, insurance agents. He took out $60,000 in policies on his 8-year-old son. Daneen O'Bryan, his wife, testifies for the prosecution. I knew nothing about the insurance policies. O'Bryan's legal team attempts multiple strategies. They argue the chemical store visits were innocent. He was curious about chemistry. The prosecution presents a chemist who tested the Pixy Stix. Each tube contained pharmaceutical-grade potassium cyanide. The defense argues O'Bryan called the insurance company because he was grieving and confused. The prosecution plays the recorded call. O'Bryan's voice is calm, calculated. June 3, 1975. The jury decided guilty on all counts. June 4, 1975. Sentencing hearing. The prosecution requests death penalty. The defense requests life imprisonment. No prior criminal record. The judge sentences Ronald Clark O'Bryan to death. He becomes the first person in Texas sentenced to lethal injection instead of electrocution. O'Bryan shows no emotion as the sentence is read. His only statement, "I'm innocent. This is wrong." O'Bryan spends 9 years appealing his conviction. Multiple appeals. Multiple denials. March 31, 1984. Huntsville, Texas. Death row. O'Bryan is scheduled for execution at midnight. Outside the prison, a crowd gathers. Some protesting the death penalty. Others celebrating justice. Inside, O'Bryan writes his final statement. What is about to transpire is wrong. I forgive all who have taken part in my death. I pray for forgiveness for anyone I've offended. To my loved ones, I extend my undying love, still claiming innocence, still maintaining the stranger theory. 12:01 a.m., April 1, 1984. Ronald Clark O'Bryan is executed by lethal injection. Cost of his insurance fraud scheme: 1 murdered son, 4 attempted child murders, 9 years on death row. The destruction of Halloween for generations. Profit: $0.